Bi'ur Mishnah. The explanation for Mishnah, continuation of our things. Hazorek b'Shabbat min hayam layabasha. Somebody who throws on Shabbat, he's swimming and he's throwing something from the sea into dry land. Which means, in our case, Carmelit to Reshut HaRabim. Hainu, from the Carmelit to the public domain, or min hayabasha layam, or whether he throws it from the land to the sea. Mereshut HaRabim leCarmelit, from the public domain to the Carmelit. Another case can be umin hayam lasfina, or from the sea to the boat. In other words, over here it's a little bit different. It's from the Carmelit into the private domain, not into the public domain, into the private domain. Haynu miKarmelit lereshut hayachid umin asfina layam, or from the boat to the sea. Mereshut hayachid leCarmelit, from the public domain, from the private domain to Carmelit. For our case, the most common thing, and I don't know what the rule is, are you allowed to relieve yourself from the boat into the sea if you're in the ocean?
Oh.
That's the case. Yeah. Yeah. You are. I don't know if it's what's the rule over here.
Throwing. I mean, it's just coming out.
Yeah.
Throwing.
Okay. Uminas. And let's look at another example. Umin hasfina lechevrata. What happens if you have got two boats and you throw from one boat to another boat?
Through, but it's going through.
V'hayam mafsik benehem, and the sea is separating between them. V'nimtza zorek mereshut hayachid lereshut hayachid, so he's throwing from private domain to private domain. V'karmelit be'emtza, and the Carmelit is in the middle. In all those cases, you're not supposed to do it. But if you did it, you don't have to bring a sacrifice. Patur. Me'atam shekvar bi'arnu, from the reason we already explained. She'isurei ha'otza'ah beCarmelit, because the prohibition of taking out from a Carmelit to Reshut HaYachid, from a Carmelit to Reshut HaRabim, einam ele medivrei sofrim, it's only from the rabbis. And what's the reason the rabbis decreed on it? Because it says, we let you do it from Carmelit. You're going to think that Reshut HaRabim also allowed to be in a public domain. You're also going to do it. So we're going to say, even in the Carmelit, you're not allowed to do it. Because the Torah prohibited only from the public domain, not from Carmelit. It's a decree, maybe you're going to mix the Carmelit in a public domain. Since it is very similar to the public domain. It's very hard to see the difference between a Carmelit and a public domain. What happens? Sfinot kshurot zo lezo. The two boats are tied to each other, which means they're touching. Now are you allowed to pass things from one to another? Vesmuchot en zo lezo. They're touching. Belo efsek yam benehem. There's not a separation of the sea between them. So now are you allowed to carry from one boat to the other boat, or throw from one boat to another boat? It says metaltelim mizo lezo. You're allowed to carry from one boat to another boat. Let's take our case. You've got
כאילו במדבר, אחד ליד השני.
touching.
כן.
Touching each other.
הם יכולים.
Oh, so we have a couple of questions over here. We're not going to go deep into it. If the two boats are yours, then for sure you're allowed to. There's no the both private domains of yours. It's like from one room to another room in your house. But what happens if the one boat is mine and the other boat is his?
Still private domain.
It's two private domains, but you need to know eruv. You need to do it on Shabbat to carry from one private domain to another private domain. You need to do an eruv. So the question is, it looks like if they're touching it is you have to make the eruv. Even if they're touching, you have to make eruv before Shabbat. Otherwise, you won't be able to carry from one ocean. From the two boats, not in the ocean. The two boats you're making an eruv.
eruv. חוט מסביב?
No, you're taking food and you put it in one thing. They're both the same on the same thing. Yeah. בגמרא מבואר, in the Gemara it explains, שמדובר במשנתנו בספינות של שני בני אדם. The Gemara says we're talking about even if they belong to two people. ובא המשנה להשמיענו, and the Mishnah comes to teach us, שמותר לטלטל מזו לזו על ידי עירוב חצרות. As long as you did עירוב חצרות, then you're allowed to carry from one to another, and of course if they're both yours, then for sure you don't have to make עירוב, if they're both yours. אבל, but, אם אינם קשורות, if they are...
So here they said you have to have the eruv if you're doing that.
If two people, yeah,
Okay.
if there's two people.
Now, can you also do it, I'm on one boat, but I'm taking myself to the other boat, then you need the eruv. But what if I take it and hand it to the other guy on the other side, like the guy handing the thing out?
You're allowed to walk from public domain to Carmeli to private
But we're
domain.
not carrying something.
You're not, but you're allowed to walk.
So you can carry from one private domain to another private domain?
As long as there's a Eruv Chatzerot between them. You need to have a Eruv
So the
Chatzerot
question
between
is,
them.
if there's not, can I hand it to him and he takes it, so he's only doing half and I'm only doing half?
You're prohibited from the rabbis. You don't have to bring a sacrifice.
Like the guy was...
Yeah.
I know.
שתיים מחזיקים.
Yeah, you're prohibited from the rabbis. That's what the rabbi says. Don't do it. Even though you didn't do the whole job, don't do it.
And is this count the same as if you're a neighbor?
Yeah, yeah.
So
You're not
instead of
allowed to
a boat,
carry
you have
from-
a neighbor next door.
You're not allowed to carry it to the neighbor next door if you don't have an Eruv between the two. אבל אם אינם קשורות, what happens if the two boats are not tied to each other? זו בזו, אף על פי שמוקפות, even though they're next to each other. סמוכות זו לזו, even though they're touching each other. אין מטלטלים מזו לזו. You're still not allowed to carry. Says, why? What's the problem? I have Eruv, I have everything. שמא יתפרדו הספינות, since they are not tied, they're very likely to separate, and even if they separate for 1 second, ויפסיק הים ביניהם, then you have the sea, the Carmelit in between them, ונמצא עירוב בטל, and then the whole עירוב is nullified. שכן עשוי מדברי סופרים, because the rabbi is prohibited, לטלטל מרשות היחיד לרשות היחיד דרך הכרמלית, to go from a private domain to another private domain through a Carmelit. ואין מועיל כאן עירוב, and over here, since there's a Carmelit inside, there's no עירוב in between, even though if you made עירוב.
אבל the question that I have sometimes, if this is my boat, and this is his boat, and I come here and I touch it, okay, now when I metaltel, I don't have a Carmelit in the middle.
That's right. So you're allowed?
So I allow.
If they're not tied, you're not allowed.
I mean, no, they are not tied.
You're not allowed.
Lama, I have no Carmelit in the
Because
middle.
they're afraid it's going to come apart if it's not tied. You didn't show. It's not like two rooms that are next to each other. It's on the seat. There's waves. They're going to move.
That's why they want you to tie it.
That's right. To make it into one. To make it into one thing.
So this is a machmir question.
Yeah.
If, how boats are curved, so can you move it to the part that's not, even if it's tied, but only touching in the middle, do you have to move it towards the middle part, or you can toss it across the...
It looks like you'll have to go
Through the middle?
through the middle, yeah, because otherwise you're passing it over the thing. Maybe it's a good question. Maybe you can say since they're touching. I doubt it. I think you have to go through the middle, but I'm not sure.